Yeah. So I have been fairly useless this week in terms of watching movies or anything else. Yeah, I'm in World Cup mode. I mean, it's mainly my mornings and afternoons.
Yeah.
You know this because we were at a screening the other day, and I spent the second half of the screening very quietly watching the England-Belgium game.
Yet still completely engrossed in a perfectly awful film. So, believe me, the game was better than that movie.
Yeah, it was actually. Although neither team played their big guns, so remains to be seen.
I happened to be watching when Argentina was playing the other day, and Maradona did the two fingered
the double bird.
I happened to when I was down with our friend Santiago, from Argentina.
Sure.
And I'm looking at the screen. He does. Now I missed the goal by Messi.
Yeah.
But I saw that because they played it like 45 times. It was hysterical.
It's seriously, I don't know what's wrong with that guy. I mean, I get a lot of mileage out of how much I despise Maradona, and a lot of it is justified because he's
unrepentant.
He's unrepentant. He's a blowhard, and his bad behavior and his obese cocaine parties and. Holding hands with Hugo Chavez and, he's just being abusive and cheating, knocking the goal in with his hand.
One. All of the other stuff, frankly, I don't really care. But he cheated, man. He just cheated. He cheated.
They never should have gotten past England in the 1982 World Cup. He knocked the ball in with his hand.
You cheated, dude.
He knocked it in with his hand.
And, to me, it comes back to that.
But still, all of that notwithstanding, you're still your country's ambassador of the game. You're sitting there. There's a camera on you. And on the goal, rather than doing something magnanimous and gracious, really, you scream an obscenity at some random person around you and you flip them the double bird?
Double bird, baby.
What is wrong with him?
Yeah, Maradona.
Just, you can take the boy out of the whatever.
Sometimes it's genetic.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maradona can't help himself.
Messi is such a class act, right?
Yeah.
He's so classy.
I think you got, the one, sort of like makes up for the other just ever so slightly. but the thing about it is, over the years, I've come to simply, now I think about it, from the perch of 20 years on. And frankly, it would have been it would have been way less fun if he wasn't around. It's just not nearly as much fun.
And the thing is, I can't excuse it because he quote unquote grew up poor. Because all these guys did.
Everybody's poor.
They all did. Every major soccer star. It's the same like Wayne Rooney in the UK. Rooney is just a South London bloke.
Yeah.
And he's rude and he's abusive and he's never gotten over it. Yeah. That's still no excuse for him either.
Nope.
Look, Cristiano Ronaldo, who is doing much better in this tournament than Messi so far. But Ronaldo, we're not going to talk about movies, are we?
No.
We're just gonna,
who cares?
Ronaldo. There's some great video. This is what I wish Maradona would look at. There's some great video of Ronaldo before the last game that they played. They come out with the kids. You hold hands with the kids. That's that weird thing that FIFA's been doing for decades now. You come out holding it, and there's some video of these two kids, little boy and little girl, and they're looking at each other, and they're looking back at Ronaldo, and they're just like giggling, like they can't believe that they won the lottery that puts them right there at Ronaldo's feet. And while they're playing the Portuguese national anthem, the whole thing. And you know what Ronaldo does? He spots it, and he looks down at them, and he smiles, and he winks. And I'm like...
It's charming.
There it is.
They're charming.
It's like me and Joe Green. Have a Coke and a smile.
This is how classy he is. When they unveiled that perfectly awful bust of him at the airport, which looks like an insane clown posse member,
totally.
He just stood there and smiled. Just took it. And then this is how even much classier he is. When they got rid of that one and unveiled the other one that's even worse, he's like, you know what? Put them both.
There you go.
Because he's like, my face is irrelevant. Who cares what I look like?
Yeah.
Then you got Maradona.
Anyway, all right. So enough. I'm enough with the World Cup.
Although tomorrow, Argentina and...
tomorrow's games. We're recording this on a Saturday. Yeah. So, yes, let's see. Tomorrow we have France versus Argentina at 7 a.m. our time. Yeah. And then, which I think France will handily win, but you never know.
Unless Messi is feeling good about his last performance,
But, France has they've got so many deadly threats up front.
Well, it's the thing you always say. Those folks who they play in the southern latitudes.
Yeah.
And they go to Europe.
Yeah.
And it's just a different thing.
It's,
although Brazil has been playing good. Yeah.
There's the Latin American style and the European style, and then there's an African and an Asian style of play as well, which you see. But the game is dominated by the philosophies of Europe, and there's kind of two styles in Europe. There's sort of like the Nordic style, and then there's the total football style of the Spanish and the Dutch and the Portuguese, and then there's the Latin American style, which is primarily governed by Brazil. But the thing is that the World Cup is not for you got to be one kind of player to play for a club. When you play for 24 some odd games, and you're playing for a whole season, as opposed to now we've got to win a really compressed handful of games, and you got to coalesce as a team with people you don't play with all year round in 1 month's time. And ultimately, really, the big challenge is you've got to win 4 consecutive games in 2 weeks against the best teams in the world. That's it. Yeah. That's a whole different set of mental, stuff, mental toughness. And it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah, so. Everybody's dealing with it, but there it is. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about movies now.
Yeah,
now that we've bored everybody about stuff. We got a bunch of interesting foreign titles. The things you will not necessarily hear of very easily, and I'm gonna kick through a few of these real quickly, just so that people who have interest in this stuff will know that these things are out there. The first one, this is the most high-profile foreign title of the week. This is a François Ozon movie, Double Lover. From Cohen Media's Contemporary Classics line on Blu-ray.
Thoroughly enjoyed that film.
It was played at the Cannes Film Festival, and like everything else that Ozon does, and he's one of those French directors that just seems to be able to do no wrong, and he can just, take something simple and turn it into something amazing. Anyway, Double Lover is one of those kind of
shades. I mean, if we're going to compare it to an American film for the heck of it, shades of De Palma.
I was going to say De Palma for sure.
A lot of different De Palma actually. Yeah. Now that I think about it, but yeah,
it's more in the same tone as Swimming Pool, which he made some years ago.
Yeah.
And it's got that same thrillery vibe, but it's all about a. It begins with a woman who falls in love with her analyst and goes into some very obviously a woman, an analyst, male, female, sexual dynamics, psychological dynamics, and then you go really deep and creepy and
the young and ridiculously beautiful Marianne Vach. How do you say her last name, Mike?
Boy, gosh,
she's so beautiful, it's insane. And the opening scene for this movie,
it's a tough pronunciation because I'm not sure because it's Marine Vach.
Yeah, it was something like that. Because it's not French, right?
It's not French. It's like Romanian or something.
And that opening scene in that movie, there's an opening scene in this movie, and she's sitting in that chair across from that analyst, and it's this long
Jeremy Renier.
Yeah. A single take. Every now and then they cut to him, but he never says a word, and she goes through this long. It's like 4 minutes long, and it is absolutely riveting. Yeah. It's absolutely riveting. And it goes to show what you can do when you're a really good actor.
Yeah.
When you're a really good actor, you can handle a scene like that.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Really good stuff. So bravo for Double Lover on Blu-ray from Cohen, which comes with not much by way of extras, just a Conversations from the Quad segment with Ozon and Marine Vach, or Vas, or however it's pronounced. Slightly lower on the rung is a DVD of Back to Burgundy by Cedric Klapisch, which is a lovely film. Now, Cedric Klapisch, I did a Q&A with him at Colcoa some years ago, and he did L'Auberge Espagnole and the 3 films that kind of followed after it, which are all very lovely and wonderful, all character-driven stuff. And this is about a family winery. And the 3 siblings, 2 brothers and a sister, who effectively inherit it after their father passes, and all of the things that they have to deal with. They've got to deal with an inheritance tax, and they have to figure out how to pay it, and they've got to figure out how to, do we want to keep it? Do we want to sell it? Do we want to run it? Do we want to lease it? It's all of these things, and you think, wow, that sounds like a whole lot of boring bureaucratic nonsense. And you know what? It's a lovely movie.
Yeah,
because it's about the people, and it's about this, and it doesn't have to be a winery. It could have been a farm. It could have been an office building. It's about family dealing with the loss of a parent and all of the stuff, all the baggage that now falls into your lap. It's really smart. It's beautifully photographed, and the performances are just perfect. Anna Girardot, Jean-Marc Rouleau, François Civil, Pio Marmaille, just a great cast. Really wonderful. fair amount of extras, mostly behind the scenes stuff. There's a commentary by Clappish, which is lovely, and then 40 minutes of additional scenes, which is not all that it sounds like it is. It's sort of cutting room floor stuff. Sheikh Jackson this was really interesting. There were two. I reviewed this on Film Week, and there were two movies that week that both had recreations in them, and I forget what the other one was, but they were both foreign films that had the other one was like a Chilean film or something that had recreated some part of a Michael Jackson music video without licensing the music.
Oh no.
So they didn't actually use the music. They just did the dance. And
oh, I remember that.
remember?
Yeah, about the kid who thought who went around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Sheikh Jackson is a really kind of an interesting, fascinating, bizarre movie. The whole, I don't even know how to sort of get into the premise of it. The idea is that the character here, the main character, is Khalid, who is he's basically studying to be a Muslim cleric. And he's given up his sort of wild life, his wild younger days, but he still has he has that little spark for Michael Jackson. In his private time, he sort of is visited by the ghost of Michael Jackson, or at least what he imagines it is. And the question is, can you reconcile a very conservative Muslim life with loving to dance to Michael Jackson music? It's kind of fascinating. And this played the London Film Festival, the BFI London Film Festival last year. It was also at Toronto, and it's not a great film, but there's a charm at the middle of it and in the lead performance that you sort of can't resist.
And it speaks to a thing that's actually true about Michael Jackson's relatively outsized popularity in places around the world, even later years. Later years in the United States or whatever. I'm a big fan of Michael Jackson. I went to Michael Jackson's funeral. That's a thing that I'll always be able to say, so I can say it now. I went to Michael Jackson's funeral. But he was a huge Malaysia and other places like that, and this kind of speaks to that.
It's really amazing, and you wonder, is the ability is his ability to travel? Is it related to the music? Is it related to him? Is it related to both? Or is there some other intangible that we haven't yet sort of identified that makes it so universal? I don't know.
Good question. Yeah.
I don't have an answer. Jose Carlos Ruiz, very fine actor, very fine veteran actor in a movie that played a whole number of festivals, including South by Southwest, called Tormentero by Ruben Imaz. This is just all completely centered around the central performance. It is just absolutely a brilliant performance. Ruiz is a veteran actor, and this is just powerful stuff. The idea here is that it's sort of like The Old Man and the Sea a little bit. About an old fisherman named Romero who is trying to reconcile the things that happened long ago in his village, and there's an event that happened back then, and it still haunts him even in the waning stages of his life as his mind and his body are starting to go. And he's sort of trying to bring all of these things to reconcile, and it winds up just sort of coalescing in this beautiful piece of kind of magical realism. And I am not a fan of magical realism, but this is one of those exceptions to the rule. A very well received at Tribeca was Bodan Slama's Ice Mother. This was at Tribeca last year. And this is a Czech film that deals in some of the same territory as a lot of these movies we've seen lately about, like Amour, about older couples and late life, resurrection, and all of that.
Family reconciliation,
all of that stuff. So this is about an old widow who is visited by her sons and their families, and it doesn't necessarily work out so well. The family doesn't really have she and her sons, they don't necessarily get along very well, and then she meets this guy, late life romance, and it all centers around ice swimming. And ice swimming is of course a metaphor here for late life rediscovery and reinvigoration and what the ice does. But it's very sweet and it's beautifully acted. Wonderful performances, and it just reminds you that a lot of these countries that we just don't see their movies often enough. They have really great actors. Who've worked for decades.
Veterans, yeah. It also reminds you that you don't always need a movie star.
Yeah.
That sometimes what you need are good performances, which was something that was true, of American cinema for a long, long time, probably through the '70s, and it was only beginning in the '80s. I mean, we always had movie stars. Don't make me,
Yeah.
but there was a moment there when movie stars were movie stars, and everybody else was a good actor.
Yeah.
And generally speaking, a movie would have one or two movie stars in it and a bunch of great. Now, you go see these movies and they're packed with movie stars. Saw a movie the other day, Vera Farmiga, Christopher Plummer, Bobby Cannavale. I mean, it was like 8 movie stars in this movie. Each one of them had 3 lines of dialogue. And I just, I mean, have you noticed that?
Yeah.
It's an odd thing. It's an odd thing. Anyway,
Yeah. Strange. Great little Filipino movie here called Motherland by Ramona S. Diaz. And Motherland is this is a documentary that veers much more into that verite realm. And we don't often see a lot of Filipino documentaries. We don't often see a lot of foreign documentaries generally. But this is a look at what is allegedly, and I would question whether we could really confirm this at all, but it is allegedly the planet's busiest maternity hospital. Now, that's saying quite a lot. There are places, obviously, where birth rates are high, and I'm sure that statistic, I would guess that statistic probably changes every few months, every few weeks, because birth rates go up and down. But in any case, according to them, this is, in fact, the busiest maternity hospital in the world, and it's done in a kind of a verite way where there's not any commentary. The Fred Weissman direct cinema thing.
That's sort of fly on the wall.
The fly on the wall. And it is really quite engrossing.
It's an interesting thing. I will tell you this. The world's most busy maternity hospital is unequivocally not in the United States.
No, for sure.
That's for
or
sure.
Europe.
Or Europe.
Or China.
And perhaps some places, what are we calling the maternity hospital? I'm doing quotes. Perhaps some places in South or Central America, maybe.
The birth rates are highest, obviously, in Latin America, and certainly parts of Asia. Philippines is one of them. Indonesia, I believe, would be another. But I'm sure it's certainly up there. Anyway, it's really let's put it this way: if it's top 10, it doesn't matter whether it's 1, 3, 7, or 12. It's a really fascinating place to see, and it's fascinating to behold. It's not like, I mean, it's just, I don't want to call it a baby factory, but it certainly seems like it. And
it's a place where they figured out that this is happening, and we need to do this well, and to have high or low infant mortality rates. That's what's interesting about it.
And what's also interesting to me too, if you, I don't know to what extent this is true elsewhere in America or in other parts of the world, but certainly if you live in Los Angeles, the elder care industry in Los Angeles is almost 100% Filipino. It's really extraordinary. My aunt, before she passed, was cared for in a facility that was owned and operated by a Filipino family that had historically, already second generation, historically owned and run many of these, and that was already the second facility like that. And it's part of the culture.
Goes back about 25 years in the United States now, but it comes out about 30 years ago. Excuse me. There were a number of Filipino RNs, nurses, and LVNs that came into the United States.
Yeah.
It was after that the volcano.
Right. Exactly.
I was in the Philippines. There, Clark Air Force Base was engulfed by the volcano, and there was this influx, and then it was a very interesting thing. These little micro migrations happen all the time due to all kinds of neat little things that go on in the world, and that was one of them. And that's why you have all of those Filipino folks running those homes.
Yeah,
exactly
it's really culture. It's a cultural thing. It's
I
really
love
extraordinary. It's wonderful. And then last one here is a movie called Inflame, which was a Berlin competition entry, and also played some other festivals in the United States. This is a Turkish film. Not the most popular place in the world these days, Turkey, but the Turkish film industry continues to turn out some really, really fascinating works. And this is one of them. This is written and directed by Salan Ozgun Özçelik. Gosh, I hope I didn't mutilate that, because Turkish has all of those accents and additional things to the Latin alphabet, and I never know how to pronounce them. But anyway, Salan Ozgun Özçelik, I believe is how you pronounce the name. Writer-director, and very unusual relative to most of the Turkish art films that I've seen in recent years, which tend to be sort of more in the Ingmar Bergman vein, very slow and methodical and brooding and character-oriented. And this one is much more, kind of, I don't want to say Western, but has sort of a more Euro thriller, psychological thriller aspect to it. Dealing with nightmares and this woman who is sort of trying to escape from what she's afraid might not necessarily be a purely psychological phenomenon, if that I doesn't sort of give anything away. And then the question becomes: is the dream, is the nightmare tied into something in her past? Is it tied into something in her present? What is the source of this nightmare that she can't get past? So it's really interesting. It's really, really well done, and it's incredibly well paced. It's called Inflame, and it's also a really, really great central performance. Really, really good. So Selan Ozgun Ozcelik. If the filmmaker becomes a huge, giant phenomenon in the world, we will all learn how to pronounce that name much better in the future.
One of those moments.
Yes.
I want to pop over and do a few new movies.
New movies, let's do it.
Interesting. A couple on top here, which are films that are kind of political films. Political films with events out of the 70s and 80s. First one, 7 Days in Entebbe. When I think about the events of Entebbe, of course, an airplane was hijacked and taken to Entebbe.
Yeah.
A airplane full of Jews and Jews and French folks. And taken by a terrorist sect that involved Palestinians and part of a German terrorist sect.
Baader-Meinhof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a movie about that period. Now, the movie that you're probably thinking about is that movie with Yaphet Kotto.
There were two, if you remember
Oh,
that.
yeah, there were.
There were two, and I remember this very well. There were two in the 70s, there was a competition between ABC and NBC, I think it was. And they were racing to see who could get their Entebbe movie on TV first.
Because the events of these events and within the actual events and when these movies hit television, I think that one on ABC actually was within the same year.
It was.
Yeah.
And ABC rolled the dice and said, better to be first than good. so they rounded up Martin Sheen and a few other people, and they shot something that is basically a chamber piece television play. It was almost shot like a teleplay on video. No film, straight up 3 camera and cut, right? Some guy in a booth.
Yeah.
Like they did at old Sidney Lumet style in the 50s.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's very 50s. It's
very 50s. Very Playhouse 90.
Yeah.
And they popped that thing out there and they thought, yeah, we made it first. And then, 6 or 7 months later, NBC came out with theirs, which had, Yaphet Kotto playing Idi Amin.
And was it Lancaster? Who was it?
Remember.
I think it was Lancaster. Anyway,
but it was smooth and well done and polished, and that was one I think that got the higher ratings. So who knows?
What's interesting is both of them were completely and totally wrong, and wholly from the point of view of the Israelis. What they're trying to do here, and this movie doesn't really work, they're trying to get on the other side of the events, as well as within the point of view of the sort of Israeli Prime Minister, Sheikh, all of these names that we know from back in the day. And try to look at it from both sides. It doesn't really ultimately work as a film, but I did appreciate the undertaking. Daniel Bruhl and Rosamund Pike in the film. 7 Days in Entebbe. Historically an interesting sort of movie to engage in. I wish that they had put something in terms of special features on this DVD. Perhaps some sort of historical documentary or something like that. That would have been nice. To sort of round that out. Maybe it's commentary. Another one from 1982, set in 1982, Beirut, and the film is called Beirut. John Hamm, Rosamund Pike. A fairly intense film written by Tony Gilroy, directed by Brad Anderson. Brad Anderson directed Next Stop Wonderland years ago in Session 9. Made some really neat movies in the late 90s, early 2000s, Brad Anderson.
Yeah.
And then went on and did a whole lot of television.
Next Stop Wonderland is still one of my favorite films. It's so
today.
Delightful.
Yeah, I actually like Session 9. That was pretty intense too.
Philip Seymour Hoffman is so good in Next Stop Wonderland too. It was so good.
It's really, really neat movie. So he directs this, written by Tony Gilroy. It has that sort of Tony Gilroy pace to it. It's about a guy who used to be a diplomat. Now he's been brought in to negotiate the release of a captured CIA agent. All kinds of things from his past come up. He's made friends with this young Palestinian kid named Kareem, who he's sort of mentoring a little bit. He's there with his wife, Rosamund Pike, and it becomes one of those, what is real and who's on whose side, and double cross and triple cross kind of movies. And it's set during that time when the Middle East was simply a frame. I was still in the Air Force back in 1992, and going in and out of Germany and going in and out of Saudi Arabia. And if we think it's intense now, let me tell you, it was pretty damn intense then. This movie captures a lot of that, and I like it quite a lot. It moves pretty fast, kind of like one of the Bourne movies. Tony Gilroy, of course, a writer of most of the Bourne trilogy of films. Again, the bonus features are a little bit sparse, but there are some behind the scenes with Rosamund Pike and the behind the scenes of Beirut. But a little historical documentary about these periods. They should think about that.
And between Beirut and Entebbe, good on Rosamund Pike for not sort of going full Harrison Ford and saying I want big paydays from now till the end of time. She's taking in good work.
Yeah, and serious work anyway. We'll go comedy now. Blockers. I like this. This is the outrageous, unrated bonus content version. It was a pretty crude, rude film to begin with, but I liked it because it was very clever, and it was very much about the young ladies and the women. Yeah. This is a movie about these parents, and they have these young women who are their daughters, and they're graduating from high school, and these girls have made a pact to have sex on graduation night or whatever. Now, this is the thing. This is a boy movie. You look at this Porky's, all those kind of movies. The way this movie deals with this is much, much, much different. Yeah. These are young women who are empowered and acting on their own agency. These are young women who know much more about sex than any of their goofy parents. Yeah. Their goofy parents, some of whom got knocked up when they were 16. These kids aren't doing that. And
it's the flip side of Superbad.
It's the flip side of Superbad, and it's funny, and it's a little outrageous, and it doesn't go exactly where you think it will. And look, I thought this was just about one of the cutest movies I saw last year. All kinds of really neat bonus features on this Blu-ray DVD. Blockers, absolutely outrageous. I can only imagine. This was based on. I'm going to do this one. I'll tell you why in a second.
All right.
You do this one, and I'll tell you why I'll do that.
Okay.
One. You want to do the? You do all. I'll
no, that's fine. You rock it. I can only imagine with Dennis Quaid, and Dennis Quaid isn't. He's the only name you're going to recognize in this, except for maybe Trace Adkins and J. Michael Finley.
I just do not remember that song. I know it was a gigantic hit.
It's. I can only imagine is a song that was a huge hit with a particular segment of the population, primarily people who are into country western and all of that. Anyway, this is kind of this is aimed at the faith-based audience, but it's not a faith-based film per se. It is a mainstream film. And it's actually really sweet and old-fashioned and inspiring.
It was,
about it's the story of the song and
the guy had a brutal father who was kind of
and how he's trying to reconcile himself with that, and it's it's really uplifting. It's got a good cast, and it's sweet, and it's old-fashioned, and comes with a whole bunch of extras, including deleted scenes and an audio commentary, and it's perfectly fine. So it's a wonderful release from Lionsgate. Comes with Ultraviolet that you can, or iTunes.
I would even call it a family film. It is about a dad who was kind of mean to his son, and
there's not a lot of that these days anymore. And it's nice to have a few of those.
And thanks for letting me do this one, man. Okay. This is Trouble Is My Business. I did not know this was going to be in the stacks today. This is the 2-disc. This is the 2-disc Blu-ray of Trouble Is My Business. Let me tell you, this is my homie. I've known this guy almost as long as I've known you.
And I did not know that.
Tom Conkle is my guy. I've known him almost as long as I know. We worked at UCLA together. We talked about UCLA just this morning. We go back that far. Worked on so many films and comedy things together, Tom and I. And Tom made this really neat movie, Trouble Is My Business. We were always these big noir fans, Tom and I. Even wrote a noir film that Wade was the producer on for quite a while, and it's a neat thing. And Tom decided to make a noir film that was completely steeped in the oeuvre of the noir, and he uses all kinds of CGI and great stuff, and he's in it. Tom's a wonderful actor. You've seen him many times in commercials and on TV shows. He's a great character actor, and he knocked off this movie. It's really, really good. And he packed this DVD with just about everything you'd want to see in it, along with Tom in the movie, the great Vernon Wells and Brittany Powell. Love Brittany. Brittany used to run around a whole bunch of Xena warrior princesses. with a sword, cutting people in half.
Yeah.
Back in the day, just love Britney, so she's fantastic. She's fantastic in this movie, which is a sort of femme fatale, film noir, ballad detective that has one of those ladies who comes to his office in the middle of the night and tells, "You got to help me."
Yeah,
it's one of those things. And Tom plays and it's so funny and so wry. It's all about the dialogue. It's the kind of movie where you can put it on and just listen to it and walk around cracking up for a half an hour. So anyway, this is the 2-disc special edition, color and black and white, in high def version of Trouble Is My Business.
Sweet.
By my buddy Thomas Conkle. Way to go, Tommy.
All right, we've got a bunch of PBS titles to recommend to you this week. Some really, really good PBS documentaries. These are, PBS just nails it. And then we're gonna pile into some TV and see if we can wrap some things out with some classic movies. The Gang Crackdown is another typically outstanding Frontline documentary that deals primarily with MS-13, who's in the news all kinds of crazy right now. And of course, if you know the MS-13, Marastrucha 13 is a gang that started in the United States, went to El Salvador, and is now coming back from El Salvador, having metastasized into something much worse than what it began as. Of course, it's all the rage in the news. President Trump talked about MS-13, and the people push back, and it's become a bit of a political football. So it's helpful to have a Frontline documentary that separates fact from fiction, hysteria from reality, and really goes into exactly what the history of this is, what their presence in the United States means, what the potential remedies are for how to deal with them, and so forth. Feels like we've been dealing with gang warfare in the U.S. for a long time, and what started as Bloods and Crips has now become MS-13. And
this particular strain of, if we remember correctly, gangs in the United States go all the way back to the 30s,
30s and 40s for sure,
and that kind of stuff. But of course, what we think about now certainly began, South Central, early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and all of this happened. It is profoundly ironic that most of those Marastrucha 13, MS-13 were in fact deported from the United States to various different places, particularly El Salvador. Deeply, that much more ironic considering our involvement in El Salvador in the late 70s and early 80s, Oliver North and all that kind of stuff. So we have a finger and a hand and maybe an entire arm in that.
And the question is it possible to overreach? Is it possible to do the wrong things, thinking you're doing the right things? And there are no easy answers to any of this, but it's a great documentary. Frontline always does a great job covering all their bases, and it's just superb.
Well, they make old school docs where they're not editorials; they're docs.
And to wit, another one, Frontline got right out in front like they do, hence the name.
Years ago, you did a long form interview.
He did,
with Harvey.
And
we've always had interesting conversations. So thus, when all of this went down, you and I were just not all that deeply surprised.
That's true. And this Frontline is called Weinstein. And the thing is, this is not Frontline getting out in front of something that has not already been thoroughly vetted in the media. We had the New Yorker piece. We had the New York Times piece. We had all the follow-up pieces, including several on our DigiGods site. Ray Green did some great reporting on it as well. So, this is sort of all out there. But what Frontline did do here is they hooked up with the BBC and they made just a straight up 1 hour special, and they went right back to many of the sources and tried to look at who knew what and when, as opposed to sort of it's less about what did Harvey do and when did he do it. It's more about who enabled him, and what is this culture that enabled him, and what prevented him from being exposed, which is still an open question, frankly. Now that we know all the stories, everybody's asking, well, why didn't this come? And look, I'll be honest, we all knew Harvey was a pig, but we didn't know he was a rapist.
No.
We
we knew he was a pig, and we knew he was in at least the ordinary mold of the sort of Hollywood mogul. And again, even that, this doesn't begin with Harvey Weinstein.
No.
This doesn't even begin with Shirley Temple being chased around her desk.
I don't even think it starts with the movies.
No, it certainly doesn't.
I think if we go back to theater impresarios in 1820,
you're gonna find something.
You're gonna find something similar.
So context is a hell of a thing.
Yeah. Then we move to Secrets of the Dead. Got a couple of great Secrets of the Dead installments here. Hannibal in the Alps is really, really great. This, of course, goes back to the story of the famous General Hannibal and his collision with the Romans. And we always picture Hannibal as coming in with all the elephants, right? And the Romans coming back, and thousands and tens of thousands of troops and horses and elephants and everything else. And it's really, really it's almost myth at this point, and the question is how much of it is true and how much of it isn't. And so they go back and they look at all the possible the routes that he might have taken and what archaeological evidence there might be, and experts kind of use computer analysis to try to separate fact from fiction. And the idea of elephants in the Alps is almost preposterous at a certain point, but you know what, man? I mean, it may well have happened as myth claims. And then there's also Secrets of the Dead, America's Untold Story, which is rather gripping and grueling, because a lot of people may not realize this, but Jamestown and Plymouth were not the first European settlements in the New World. This goes back all the way back.
The ones that came and disappeared.
Yes, and this is a 4-hour look at that history, and it is fascinating. It was a weird mixture of renegade people from Spain and Africa and from Germany and even the British Isles, and this is just an unbelievably bizarre, strange story that has just gotten lost by history. So that is America's Untold Story, installment of Secrets of the Dead. And then the last few here, real quickly, Decoding the Weather Machine from Nova, which, weather has become an increasingly hot topic with climate change and more and more popular interest in everything related to how do we predict the weather, how do we know what's going to happen, are the models reliable, what's the scientific consensus, how much of it is science, how much of it is modeling, all of that stuff. So this attempts to sort of decode all of that stuff and make it accessible to average people. And then Natural Born Rebels is from the Nature line. And this is all about weird animals, basically. There are 3 episodes here, and it just deals with odd, unusual, strange behavior of all kinds of certain animals, whether they're reptiles or mammals or insects or birds or whatever they may be. Some of them just do strange and unusual things, and they're sort of larcenous. The way that some animals will just straight up lie, cheat, and steal.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, but they do it. And then very lastly is First Civilizations, War, Religion, Cities, and Trade. This is just a wonderful kind of archaeological / anthropological look at the latest theories that look at how human civilizations developed, how certain civilizations disappeared, how many civilizations subsumed and overcame and absorbed other civilizations, and how cultures have merged and bifurcated. And it's just a wonderful overview of how we got from there in the Bronze Age and before to where we are now, and the role that all kinds of things played, whether it's religion, culture, trade, mysticism, all of those things. It's just really great. It's called First Civilizations: War, Religion, Cities, Trade.
Absolutely fascinating. I'll throw you a couple of other docs from Discovery.
Yep.
Here, Shark Week. Look, I mean, people love these Shark Week.
It's been around 30 years.
It's just insane to me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's crazy.
18 episodes here. Michael Phelps shows up in the great Olympian Michael Phelps shows up in a couple of these, and they do absolutely engage in some absolutely fascinating shark species here. They're down in the Bimini Shark Lab. It's neat. I have never been a big fan of Shark Week. Mostly watching wild animals eat other wild animals turns me off, but people like it. Anyway, 3-disc collection here, Sharktacular Adventures, 18 episodes, Antarctica, in the footsteps of the Emperor Penguin. This is an absolutely fascinating doc. From the director of March of the Penguins. And now this was more my speed. Fewer things get viciously eaten in these wonderful sort of penguin documentaries than in the Shark Week documentary. This is a 2 DVD set, and it's really, really lovely. This is the kind of thing you can put on for the kids and the family and let them watch, and you'll love it and enjoy it over and over and over again. What series is that from?
Oh, that's from MHZ.
MHZ.
That's MHZ Choice, not megahertz. We've been told many times they are MHZ. Do not call them megahertz.
And I should have said the other Shark 30 Years of Shark Week, the other dropping from Discovery. So that too.
The Blu-ray 30th anniversary thing. Yeah.
With your other Shark Week spectacular there. Now, shall we go ahead and do a little bit of television?
Let's do it.
Black Lightning. The Black Lightning, the complete first season. I got to tell you, I like this show. It's a lot of fun.
It is.
Not exactly what I had in mind when I was thinking that I wanted to see myself a black superhero. Because, you and I, we're more Luke Cage kind of guys.
Yeah, totally.
But this is neat. It's sort of an urban set show. It's set around a family. As you work I do like this about it. It moves very, very quickly.
It does.
And doesn't do a whole lot of teasing. Not like The Flash, which is another show that I deeply, deeply love. But The Flash will tease you for 18 episodes. Yeah. Black Lightning moves at a hell of a clip. And before you get to the end of this first season, there's not only Black Lightning, both of his daughters have got superpowers, and they're kicking the snot out of this Albano guy. And excuse me. I do like the language in the show, and I like that it's a show sort of like that movie Black Panther that is concerned with the travails and woes of the inner city, and it doesn't have a whole lot of white folks as enemies.
Yeah,
no, we're taking care of business at home. I like that about this show,
which frankly Luke Cage is doing as well. Have you watched season 2?
I have not gotten to season 2 because I started. Look, we're doing it again. Jessica Jones, and I wasn't so
second season. Jessica
same
Jones
thing with Legions. Same thing with second season. Not so nuts about it, and that kind of put me off of going to the second season of Luke Cage.
I'm a little bit afraid. I'll be honest. I am too. I'm a little afraid. Thing is, the second season of Daredevil's better than the first season, so they can do it. They just have to. They have to figure it out. I'm hoping there will never be a second season of Iron Fist. Because that first season.
Well, they can't do any worse.
That was horrible.
Bad casting. Over an hour of extras, 2 featurettes, Comic-Con panel, gag reel, all kinds of stuff from the CW. Black Lightning.
Yay.
Do you know this series? This Italian series?
Yes. Sorry, that should have been over here with me. This is episodes 31 and 32 of Detective Montalbano, also from MHZ. This is the really terrific Italian detective series. We've talked about this before. And Detective Montalbano is just one of those great detective characters because the whole thing is fundamentally written for the actor, like they do in the UK. In this case, it's Luca Zingaretti, who is a terrific actor. He just owns this character. He just works it with every nuance that he knows how to do. He's one of those scrappy kind of. He's like if I guess somewhere between Mannix, Kojak, and who knows who else. He's a crusty, scrappy guy. Got all kinds of baggage, but you know what? He's really, really, really a great detective. He's just really, really great. And the 2 episodes here are called Merry-Go-Round and Amore. Amore is the one that really gets into some really, really dark stuff. Gets pretty dark. So I would say, well, they both get dark. To be honest, it's all really pretty dark. But anyway, Detective Montalbano, episodes 31 and 32. If you haven't seen this show, you got to watch it from MHZ.
And now, wait,
I know
because I'm so gonna borrow this.
I know.
I'm a Doctor Who man. I'm a Doctor Who man, and this is my man of the. I go all the way back with Doctor Who, 1963. You know, Troughton and Hartnell and all that. But I am a Tom Baker man. People who knew me in the 90s walking around with that scarf that I used to wear. That was this guy's fault.
Yeah.
Tom Baker's Doctor Who. The complete season 1. I absolutely adored this show, particularly adored Tom Baker. Tom Baker was the guy who took Doctor Who from being a sort of crotchety old man whom he had been when Troughton and Hartnell and even Pertwee I played him. He was always kind of this testy, mean old guy who wasn't particularly nice to the young women and the women on the show. You know, because he's just one of those old guys. Tom Baker was the exact opposite. He was jubilant and lots of fun, and he not only trusted in the women on the show, the young women who would be his companion on the show, he counted on them. And he learned from them.
Yeah.
And plus, he had that mechanical dog. He was the one that introduced us to K9 on the show, and he was a lot of fun. This is absolutely packed with just about everything a ridiculous fan such as myself would want. all kinds of brand new behind the scenes specials, as well as featurettes and CGI effects and audio commentaries. And man, it's just so wonderful. Anyway, yeah, gonna be borrowing this for a while. Tom Baker, Elizabeth Sladen, Ian Martha, and Nicholas Courtney as. Who was the Brigadier?
Yeah,
the Brigadier.
Well, as long as we are still in the British TV realm, let's talk about Man in an Orange Shirt, which is a terrific masterpiece drama. This is about two gay romances tied together by one woman. One takes place in the 1940s, one is present day. And this comes from British novelist Patrick Gale. Not familiar with Patrick Gale. I know a lot of people who are big fans, but this is actually really, really good. And anytime you do one of those separated by, when you're juxtaposing two stories from different eras in one, there's a balance question. It's a very tricky thing to make sure that people don't resent you when you move from one story to the other, that they don't feel like one is stronger than the other, one has
been abandoned.
Yeah, and you've got to have them so that they fuel each other, and that's a really tricky thing for a writer, and it's an even trickier thing for actors and for directors, because the actors are giving it their all, and if one pair of actors gives it more than the other pair of actors, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So everybody has to be just perfectly fine-tuned, and you know what? The Brits do that better than anybody else. This is just wonderful. Vanessa Redgrave shows up in this as well. But really, it's all about the four men who play the four leads, and the woman who plays Flora, or the women who play Flora. It's really quite it's quite powerful. Really, really well done. It's called Man in an Orange Shirt. It's from PBS, and it's on Blu-ray, and you should watch it. We also have Game of Thrones, first season on 4K.
Really?
Yeah.
The first season.
First season. We're on 4K now. So anybody who bought the first season on Blu-ray and thought that they were done, no, you need to double dip, because you know what? They've remastered this sucker on 4K, or else they had it ready to go for 4K. In any case, it's even better. The special effects are improved. The textures, the colors, the richness, the blacks, everything just looks better in 4K.
Looks better. Did they give you anything else, though, on that thing?
It's got the same bonus features as before, anatomy of an episode, and all the behind-the-scenes stuff and the audio commentaries. There's nothing new here in terms of the bonus features. So it's the same bonus features you're getting. If you're double dipping on this, you're double dipping for specifically for what you're getting on the 4K. But look, Game of Thrones has gotten better as it's gone along. So there's also something to revisiting the first season and realizing where it all began. So it's a good excuse. And then we also have a fascinating Hamlet. Now, it was recently announced that Glenda Jackson who's going to be playing Lear?
Yeah.
So we're doing a thing now, this whole whole gender flipping, gender bending deal, which with Shakespeare is belongs to everyone, and everyone has twisted it and squeezed it every which way.
Black Shakespeare's and modern Shakespeare's
and Chinese Shakespeare's, and I'm good with it, because Shakespeare is immortal, and why not give it a twist and let a woman play Lear?
There are only a few Shakespeares where gender is the thing, came of the shoe.
Well,
but even then, you can
all Shakespearean plays, when originally cast, had men playing the female roles.
Anyway, yeah. So there you go.
I don't have a problem with flipping that around today and playing it the other way around. Maxine Peake in this one gets to play Hamlet. This is Maxine Peake in Hamlet. If you're not familiar with Maxine Peake, she is an absolutely sensational performer. And seeing her play Hamlet in this very cool revisionist version of it is really quite compelling. This is from Film Movement, and it's a very minimalistic interpretation for the stage. But it's really, really interesting. It's the first time that a woman has actually played this role, I believe. And they claim in the notes for this that Frances de la Tour was the first woman to do it, but that's something I'm not familiar with. So I'll trust them that she's the second, but it's the first that I'm aware of. In any case, so anyway, Maxine Peake playing Hamlet, really, really interesting, very compelling.
Outstanding. I love it. Michael Emerine made a wonderful Hamlet years ago. Yeah, he did. So set in contemporary New York. I think Ethan Hawke played Hamlet in that.
Yep.
We're going to do a few of these over here.
Yeah, let's knock it out.
Well, I have this little movie here, and then I'll jump into some of the old school television stuff that I particularly love. This is an interesting little film called Sea Change. By a guy named Chris Grismer. This is the interesting story here. A young woman loses her father. She's 17 years old. She moves out to these islands. I think they're called the Silky Islands.
Yeah.
and it's sort of a little cloistered society with townies and folks who are the more sort of blue collar folks. And she finds herself drawn to two young men. One of them from one of the oldest families on the island, and the other is more of a towny kid who kind of works the shore and all that kind of stuff. And then she finds out about these people called the Sea Walkers, and there's a myth that there are these people who are part sea creature and part human, and her mother and she might be them. And it's kind of neat, based on a best-selling novel, New York Times best-selling novel. So, neat thing. And it's sort of romantic, really, really beautifully shot. And they got a lot out of it for not a whole lot of money, not a whole lot on it. It ran on Lifetime. It's called Sea Change. Kind of okay.
Oh, Balki.
May we please?
Let's talk about Balki.
I deeply, deeply, deeply loved Perfect Strangers. We have the complete 3rd and 4th seasons here. This show, and I don't know why I'm not even sure how this show captivated America in the way that it did.
Well, here's what happened. So, Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yes,
that's where it happens.
Well, yeah, because he was in Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Yeah, and the weird thing about this is that was a cameo.
Bronson Pinchot, Mark Lynn
Bronson
Baker.
Pinchot. So Bronson Pinchot shows up in Beverly Hills Cop 2. It was 2, wasn't it?
It
was 2.
Yeah.
And he shows up.
Just stole that scene.
And he was Serge, and he says, "My name is Serge. Can I help you?" And he does that bizarre accent, which is kind of French, kind of Russian, kind of what the hell are you doing? And he stole that moment. And here's the great thing about that moment. If Eddie Murphy had been a total egomaniac, he would have been a prima donna and said, that dude's stealing my scene. He's stealing my thunder. Cut him out of the movie. And there are a lot of careers that have been killed because some prima donna, and I know people who've had this happen to them. I know of one actor in particular who was on a TV show with another star and could have had a spinoff and didn't, because the star of the show insisted on changes that killed him off.
Made sure that he wouldn't be funny.
He wouldn't
survive.
Would not survive the show. Kill him off. I don't want that spinoff to happen. It'll take my thunder away. I know of that. I can't say a thing about it, but it's really harsh.
Oh, we've seen it happen a few times.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But Eddie was bright.
But Eddie, if you watch that movie, Eddie is struggling to not laugh his ass off.
Yeah.
Eddie is so entertained by Bronson Pinchot in that moment. He thinks it's the funniest thing ever. It is a total class moment where a comic actor says, "This dude is killing it. I'm a fan. I'm just going to let him run with this."
And it's comedians giving love to comedians. Eddie does the same thing in the first Beverly Hills Cop movie with Paul Reiser. He gives Paul Reiser a scene. He lets Paul Reiser run with it and kill it. And it may, these things can make people's career. And boom, that guy becomes this guy.
There it is, Bronson Pinchot.
Because Serge is basically some sort of incarnation of Balki.
Yeah.
Mark Lynn Baker, who, in addition to this, was in a whole bunch of other things, and also a veteran television director. Directed Bridget, my wife, in a few things. Mark Lynn Baker.
This is The Odd Couple.
Yeah,
it's The Odd Couple, redone.
With the two girls and all that kind of stuff, and hung in there for just season after season.
Yeah.
This is the complete 3rd and 4th season.
Yeah, and it's just still a fun show. It's a good old fashioned sitcom.
And again, you can watch it with
sweet.
the whole family. It's just as funny today. It doesn't age.
No.
Power from executive producer. It still says here Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. You know what? You probably lose that 50 Cent dog. You let that go. This is the complete 4th season of Power, which is actually this is a neat show. This is sort of like the serious response to Empire, which came on the Fox network, and it was a popular show and people liked it. But it was a big, sort of big and outlandish and sort of crazy. This is a very did the right, serious, dramatic show that Curtis Jackson has put together here. And it's a good show if you're into that kind of thing. It's within the sort of black community, FBI agents, a guy trying to break through the drug community and build himself a new life, but he keeps getting pulled back in. It's what they all are.
Yeah,
they're all the Godfather.
Yeah, true.
This is just the Godfather of black people.
They are.
Godfather of young black people. That's all it is. But hey, you like the Godfather? Everybody does. You'll like Power.
Yep.
Complete 4th season.
We've got some good ones here from Acorn. A couple from Acorn TV. We've got Series 2 of The Heart Guy, which is an Australian show that is really, really charming. Basically, this is kind of sort of an Australian version of Northern Exposure. Got a guy who's a heart surgeon. He's in a basically a rural area, small town called Why Hope, which I think is funny. Why Hope? All is one word. Why hope? Why bother? Anyway, this is less about this isn't really about the heart guy or the doctor. It's just about a small town in Australia where there's a lot of weird, eccentric people. Yeah. And if you've seen anything from P.J. Hogan, if you've primarily seen Muriel's Wedding, it's just that kind of thing. It's it's just odd characters
people in this
and
weird
their relationships,
little isolated. Like you said, that Northern Exposure thing.
They're so fun. They're all so fun. And the other one is Like Unto It, Girlfriends Series 1. Girlfriends is a terrific UK show with Zoe Wanamaker, Phyllis Logan, and Miranda Richardson. Miranda Richardson just keeps absolutely killing it. She's so wonderful. She's a great dramatic actress. She's a great comedic actress, especially if you've seen her on Blackadder. You know that she can absolutely light it up and just help you bust a gut. So this is basically an older girls thing. 3 women who are getting on in life. And they, get together and try to support themselves in all of their late life madness and all the instability that arrives at a point in life when you're hoping that you have it all locked down and husband and kids and everything is supposed to be on cruise control, and it's not. It's not. So, and there's some great twists and turns and things here that go in interesting directions. It's a really, really interesting show. It's called Girlfriends. This is Series 1, and I can't wait for Series 2. And then the last 2 here, The Best of Agatha Christie, Volumes 3 and 4 from Acorn, which includes stuff that has been released previously, but in box sets. It's nice to have these things contained. What we get here are basically all Poirot and Miss Marple, and it's all these things mixed together. Partners in Crime, The Secret Adversary, Ordeal by Innocence, The Hollow, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, Dead Man's Folly, which is absolutely great because it also has Zoe Wanamaker in it. And The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side, otherwise just known as The Mirror Cracked. In this one, it's the Julia McKenzie version of playing Miss Marple, and then a Caribbean mystery. So it's all really, really good. Great mysteries, all beautifully done. Originally aired on BBC.
And I'll grab this one right here. I really like this a lot. Hostages, Season 1. This is made in Israel. It's an Israeli film shot all around Jerusalem. I love the premise of this film. It's very sharp. It's really more of a movie premise than a television show premise, but I like it anyway. So a very important surgeon who is the kind of surgeon of which there is only one that can perform a particular procedure. And she must perform this procedure on the PM the next day. The prime minister goes home to find that her entire family has been kidnapped. And the idea, of course, is for that person to assassinate the prime minister. That's a really, really good plot. A little too good if you think about it.
Yeah.
Frankly, I hope the CIA is listening to this to this podcast. Check that out. Make sure nobody does that. Anyway, it's surprising though that it's a television series as opposed to a movie plot, and they sort of managed to work it out over that period of time. Very well acted. 2-disc set, 10 episodes. Check it out. It's a very, very intense little television series, dramatic television series there. Matthew Fox did a television series called Haunted back in 2002, which is sort of interesting. It's about a cop who has a near-death experience. Cop turned private eye anyway, and now he can communicate with the dead. It's one of those kind of television series, short-lived thing, but it was pretty cool. Young Matthew Fox before he went on to do Lost and this, that, and the other thing. I think he was on Party of Five too. This is probably after Party of Five, but before Lost. That's when he was doing this. You got a few behind-the-scenes thing here, along with the few episodes that they did. Looks like they did about 6 episodes.
Yeah, cool.
Of that show. The Pink Panther cartoon collection. Blake Edwards, The Pink Panther cartoon collection. Man.
This is Volume 2.
Volume 2, audio commentaries, all kinds of wonderful stuff on here. Really, there's almost nothing to say about this. Either you grew up watching and loving
the
Pink Panther cartoon collection, or you didn't. If you didn't, get caught up.
It's if you have all the movies on Blu-ray, you need to start collecting all the shorts on Blu-ray, just so you have your complete Pink Panther collection. Because previously there was just a great big DVD box set with a nice padded cover and a lot of extras in it. And if you just want to get rid of that thing and have everything consolidated, you don't want all the additional foofy junk. Yeah, that's what you want to do. All right, we're going to wrap out now with some classic movies. And we have a giveaway because this is Tom Cruise week. Because Tom Cruise is
I got that coming up. You going to see that?
You better believe I'm going to go see it. You kidding me? I love the Mission Impossible movies. I mean, there are a couple that are a little wonky, but otherwise, I thoroughly enjoy it.
They've gotten stronger.
They have. Isn't it amazing?
That last one was very, very strong.
I thought after Mission Impossible 3, which JJ, look, I love you, JJ, but it wasn't great. I thought it was kind of dead. And then instead of doing 4, they just switched up the names, and they kind of, and look, even when you get into stuff like, was it which one was it Ghost Protocol or Rogue Nation, where he's under the water and trying to find his way into the nuclear reactor thing, which makes no sense whatsoever. There is nothing logical about anything there. But you know what? I don't care because Cruise is doing it, man. It's Cruise.
And of course, lately he's been given, he's been playing with the notion that he might be getting that Ethan Hunt might be getting a little long in the tooth for this.
Yes.
And he even got killed once in one of they had to bring him back to life. It's just really fun. And he gives all the stuff to the girl who's the British actress. He gives her all the good stuff. And again, it's like Eddie Murphy in that comedy. Tom is like, you know what? This will play better for the audience.
Yes.
If I'm the one that gets hit in the head and you're the one that drags my ass out of the water.
The confidence of a star. And he doesn't really, he doesn't need more. So anyway, we have a giveaway, and the giveaway is there will be 2 winners of each of these. And everybody can apply. 2 winners of Mission Impossible 1 through 5, a complete set of 1 through 5 on 4K. So if you want 1 through 5 Mission Impossible on 4K, 2 people can win that entire collection, and we're going to talk about it in a second. And the other contest is for Jack Reacher, the original Jack Reacher on 4K. So we're going to be giving away 2 of each, 2 Jack Reachers on 4K and 2 complete Mission Impossible 1 through 5 collections on 4K. Just go ahead and send us an email to gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com and put your name and address in the body of the email. Put Reacher if you want to be considered for the Reacher contest, and put Impossible if you want to be considered for the Impossible contest in the subject line. Reacher for the Jack Reacher set, Impossible for the Mission Impossible 1 through 5 collection. And make sure it gets to us no later than July 9th. We're going to give you the whole week next week and all the way through the holiday and on to Monday the 9th. And then on Tuesday the 10th, we will pick some winners and send those over to Paramount and make some people very, very happy. So that being done, let me talk about Jack Reacher on 4K. Looks pretty sweet. Jack Reacher, the second Jack Reacher has been on 4K already, so this completes the deal. Looks just as good. The HDR is fantastic. They're absolutely killing it over there at Paramount. They're doing a great, great job. I like both Jack Reacher films. I think I might like the first one best. Because it was the first time I was introduced to the character, and it was a new thing that Cruise was doing. And
I had read those books going back, I don't know how long, and it was interesting to me because Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is 5'9", 5'11", if you want to go with the press material.
Yeah,
Jack is 6'5".
Yeah,
in the movies, but Tom has this way of putting on those big ass boots.
Yeah.
And so like puffing himself up and contorting his body, and they put particularly Chris McCurry, who directed it, he puts the camera in a certain place, and and I'm looking at Tom Cruise, and I know he's like 5'9".
Yeah,
and I'm like, you know what? He's pulling this off. How the hell is you think it would be like Armie Hammer or somebody who's like 6'5", but no, Tom can pull off the 6'5" Jack Reacher.
He sure can.
They don't even try to pretend like he's playing him smaller. No. I'm just going to play him like he's 6'5".
He just rises. He does what movie stars do, which is he fills the frame.
Yeah.
He rises to the occasion of the role, and he just does a great job. You and I, before the show, we were talking about how that whole generation of British actors, Richard Harris and Peter O'Toole and Alan Bates, right? All those guys, all those hard-drinking blokes from that generation. There's something they could put some lights on them and point a camera at them, and they just own that moment.
They weren't
fill the
traditionally
frame.
handsome.
Nope.
Not traditionally handsome. Not Rock Hudson or whatever.
No.
Whoever you do, Tony Curtis. No,
they were rugged.
Guys, they were rugged. They had these faces, real faces. And in later years, beat up real faces.
Yeah.
But you know what? I could look at them all day.
Some hard drinking real faces.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Mission Impossible films are now all on 4K as well, and somebody is going to be very happy when they get all 5 of these. It starts with Mission Impossible 1, 2, and 3, and then goes on to Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation. Look, Mission Impossible 1 has the knock stealing scene. I know purists really hated this because of a certain moment in it.
It made look. I grew up watching that television show, and I'm sorry, that's just not true.
Yeah, but I can get over it because
I'm over it.
It's an alternate thing.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible 2 was John Woo with lots of flying doves. That was a lot of fun, but still more of a John Woo movie. Mission Impossible 3, I don't much care for, but if you're a completist, you got to have it. But you know what? The last 2, Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation, have been all right, man. They've been great. Agent Cruise is right back in the scene, and all that stuff shot in Dubai for Ghost Protocol, and all that underwater stuff for Rogue Nation is just absolutely terrific. These movies are fantastic, and I enjoy them all. They're loaded with extras here. The extras are on Blu-ray, I should point out. The 4K is strictly for a separate disc of the original movie. But here's the best part. Ultraviolet, folks. You get to add all these to your ultraviolet library, and if you don't want to have to load that 4K disc in every time, if you got your iPad with you or your phone, and you feel you want to get your juice from Cruise, you can do it anytime, anywhere, anyway with ultraviolet. Hopefully they may merge into Movies Anywhere at some point, but for now, we still have ultraviolet for Paramount Movies.
Absolutely. We're going to do some of these?
Yeah.
From Kino.
Let's wrap it up.
And this in particular is interesting to me. This is Personal Problems from Bill Gunn. Very interesting Bill Gunn. This is his sort of take on a sort of John Cassavetes style of filmmaking. Here, it's really a film that's people talking more than anything else, written by Ismail Reed with Vertime Grosvenor. And people who listen to a lot of NPR probably remember Vertime from when she would do those little food sessions and cooking sessions on NPR. But Vertime was quite an extraordinary young actress, and that's what this is. In a very interesting, Bill Gunn was an avant-garde black director 45 years ago. Right in the same school of Melvin Van Peebles, I guess you could put him back there with, and Charles Burnett probably precedes Charles Burnett by a couple of years. Really, really interesting stuff from him. This is full of all kinds of astounding special features. And a wonderful, wonderful music. 1973, of course. Bill Gunn, also the wonderful horror film Ganja and Hess, and all. So really, really great stuff. So if you're into this kind of stuff, you definitely want to check that out. Then we have Prefontaine, Jared Leto, Prefontaine, one of the wonderful early movies. There were a couple of these.
Do I get to tell my Robert Town story again?
Oh, please do. Yeah,
I can tell it every single time.
Directed by Steve James, by the way. Steve James is a wonderful documentarian. Yeah, Hoop Dreams.
This was the first of the Steve Prefontaine movies that I saw, and Steve James does an interesting thing here. Arlie Ermey of Full Metal Jacket plays the Donald Sutherland part from Beyond Limits, which is the Robert Town film.
Right.
And, the guy, what's his name? The coach who founded Nike.
Yeah.
So, and that was the first one I saw, and which is done in kind of a Red style, right? So there's a lot of fake documentary interview, direct address stuff to break it up. So it feels a little bit docudrama-like.
Kind of Haskell Wexler-y.
Yeah, and I love it. I really enjoyed this. I thought he nailed it. I thought he captured that kind of psychotic obsessiveness of Prefontaine, which apparently is not really the real guy. And that's why when the publicist told Robert Town, I was going to interview Robert Town for the thing, Wade liked the other one better. Which,
it just ratted you out.
Just ratted me out, and Town was like, "Oh, I'll show him." So I got there, and he wanted me to see that Billy Crudup really captured the real Steve Prefontaine. So there I am in Robert Town's house with the his Christmas tree all lit up, and I didn't even get to interview him for 20 minutes because he just loaded the VCR up with tape and was showing me that's the real Steve Prefontaine, and that's Billy Crudup. That's Steve. That's Billy. That's Steve. That's Billy. That's Steve. Can't tell them apart, can you? Can't tell them apart. I'm like, no, I can't. You're right. Your movie's better. Can we have an interview now?
Yeah, would you leave me alone?
Leave me alone. Stop picking on me. It was so unbelievable.
That's great.
Anyway, I still like this film.
This is a great film. Audio commentary from Steve James, so that's the most important thing that's on here. Great movie. Young Jared Leto doing his thing, man.
Yeah, and this was kind of the first big movie that he was a part of, actually. I mean, this is what really put. Isn't it weird now that Jared Leto has an Oscar, but Billy Crudup still doesn't?
Yeah, Without Limits.
Yeah, Without Limits. Sorry,
Without Limits. Yeah,
Without
yeah.
Limits,
but isn't it weird that
Yeah.
Jared Leto has Oscar and Billy Crystal?
Yeah.
But without, it's dude.
Without
So
Limits.
it's just I don't know. It's weird.
Man,
Between the two
I
of them,
just
to be
screwed up.
honest, I like that one better.
I screwed up the title, and Robert Towns, he's going to send a hitman out. I swear.
It's okay, Robert. Without Limits, just relax.
You know what's going to happen? I'm gonna turn around one day, and it's going to be Polanski. He's going to pull a knife on me, just like in China.
What's funny is, dude, that was 20 years ago. Without Limits is 98. What year?
Yeah.
What year was that one?
I think this was 97. 97.
97. So
Yeah.
that one, yeah.
It's like the Entebbe movies.
Yeah.
This was the first one out of the right. And then we've got 3 from the Warner Archive collection, 2 DVD-Rs, and then 1 on Blu-ray. The one on Blu-ray, you gotta get this. It's Designing Woman with Gregory Peck and Lauren Bacall. It's on Blu-ray. It is just absolutely wonderful. Another classic film produced by Dori Shari and directed by the great Vincent Minnelli. This is an absolutely delightful classic from 1957. You gotta get it. There are just certain movies, certain classic movies you have to have if they're on Blu-ray, and this is one of them. It's just an absolutely wonderful, wonderful look at a certain cosmopolitan, melodramatic milieu from the 1950s. If you've watched Mad Men, if you know that whole world, it's basically it's about a sports writer and his fashion designer wife, and it's melodramatic, but it's so classic Hollywood. It's so beautifully done, and all the supporting parts are so fantastic. Especially, Dolores Gray is great. Chuck Connors is in this. Mickey Shaughnessy. It's just this is classic. It's just you just sit there and you just soak in all of the classic Hollywoodness of this thing. How well directed it is, how beautifully photographed it is. It's just superb. And there's even a little documentary on this in the special features. It's really, really cool, and it's just Hollywood, man. The other 2, the straight-up DVD-Rs, are older movies. One is A Modern Hero with Richard Barthelmess. This is from 1934. This is technically a pre-code film, but there's nothing necessarily pre-code-ish about it. It's directed by G.W. Pabst, one of the great silent German directors who came over from the German Expressionist era and continue to do really, really good work. And Richard Barthelmess is really terrific in this. It's a wonderful period epic done in the 1930s style, so it's very kind of constrained in studio. You can tell that the sound constraints are sort of not great for the overall filmmaking, but Pabst makes the best of it, and it's worth watching just because it is Pabst. The other one is an old Robert Z. Leonard movie from 1943 called The Man from Down Under, and this was an MGM film originally, and you watch this basically because you just want to watch Charles Laughton be absolutely amazing. This takes place between World War I and World War II, and it's about this amazing guy named Jocko who adopts a couple of kids and raises them. And you're watching this essentially for the tearjerker aspect of it, for the wonderful, wonderful acting of Charles Laughton, who is just beyond compare. Donna Reed is in this as well, really great supporting cast. But Charles Laughton is he's beyond compare. And where it goes at the end, it's one of those wonderful melodramatic movies from the 1940s. It fires on all cylinders. It's great. Man from Down Under, Charles Laughton.
I should have mentioned this one back when we were talking about those other 2 running movies, but I actually remember watching this movie in 1979 on television. This was Michael Mann's first. It was a television movie, but it was a feature-length film.
Yeah.
The Jericho Mile. Peter Strauss in this film. And the thing that I loved about this film is that it is in fact an original story. But this film was done in Michael Mann's that almost documentary style that he was doing. Right up next. I think he did Thief next, and then next thing you know, it's Miami Vice and all that stuff that he was doing down there. And this is such a neat story. It was about this guy who was serving a life sentence in Folsom for killing his own father, Peter Strauss, playing the character. And all he did was just run. He just run. And then the prison officials they started timing. They figured this dude's from the break the 4-minute mile. And they started lobbying him to the Olympics, and he starts training for the Olympics, and it's a really intense and powerful movie. And it's an original story. It's not based on a true story, but it has to sort of same way. Now, this movie, this movie. Richard Lawson, and I got to tell you, for black folks, Richard Lawson was the equivalent of like Sidney Poitier or whoever on on television, all that kind of stuff back in the day. A handsome young black actor back in this movie. Roger E. Mosley, of course, we're going to be in TC. And Brian Dennehy is in this movie. Ed Lauder is in this movie. Beverly Todd is in this movie. Miguel Pinheiro is in this movie.
That's a lot of great character actors
talent. just eating up in this movie. Back in the day, you would see stuff. That's what we were talking about before about actors.
Yeah.
Back in the day, films with actors as opposed to today, they would be like 8 above the line movie stars.
Yeah.
In those characters. Back in the day, it was these wonderful actors. Anyway, this is a really neat movie too. Audio commentary from film historian Lee Gambon on it, and it's an HD restoration from the original camera negative. It was a television movie, so it has that. It's 1 through 3, but it's great. You can check it out.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Jericho.
All right, that does it for us this week. Keep watching World Cup if you're a soccer fan. Otherwise, watch some of the stuff we recommended, and we'll be back next week.
I really am boring, Doctor Who.